Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zither here, and I'm back at it again to drop What If Deku Was the Joker? A little bit of a Halloween special, seeing as well today is Halloween, and also I figured I might as well drop it now, seeing as there's no better time than now, seeing as I just dropped my What If Deku Was the Batman. There's going to be a tag up on screen right now, so if you want to go watch that before this or after, you guys can of course just look for it on the channel. That being said though, yeah, I figured perfect time, you know, Batman and Joker, they're two sides of the same coin, so I might as well do them back to back. That being said though, guys, if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, then please make sure you guys share the video around, leave a like on the video, and if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, if you enjoy the video, then consider subscribing. I'd love to have you a part of the Zither army. That being said though, guys, this video is going to be a sponsored one, but with nothing else and all of that out of the way, we might as well get right into the what if. Okay, so before we get started, I probably should give you guys a little bit of an insight on how this what if is going to work, and a little bit of an insight to Deku's backstory. Now, in this version of events, Deku is still, of course, going to be quirkless just like he was in the original version of events. However, one thing that will be changing is his background, his childhood. In this version of events, Hisashi is going to actually have a lot less money than they do in canon, so they're actually going to be struggling a little bit financially wise. That means that Inko has to work. That being said though, Hisashi is not going to go get the milk, and he's still going to stay there by Inko's side. However, they're going to be having a little bit of a shaky and rough relationship. They're not really compatible with each other, and this leads to a lot of arguments in Deku's home life. This causes a lot of tension, and Deku usually is at the center of it all, getting the beatings and the punishment whenever his parents feel angry and decide that they want to take it out on somebody. Deku's always seems to be there to be the first one that they look at to beat or something. So Deku's childhood in his own house is not exactly the greatest in the world, and when it comes to his life outside of school, it doesn't get any better even after that, because Deku is at this point 10 years old, and that means that for the past 5 years, Deku's been having to deal with a lot of bullying from Bakugo's side of things, because, well, put it simply, Bakugo just is, well, gonna just be bullying Deku, just to put it bluntly. Bakugo bullies Deku all the time, similar to how he does in canon. However, in this version of events, he goes a lot further into his bullying than normal. In this version, instead of just kind of berating Deku with words, most of the time, he picks on Deku by beating him up a lot of the times, beating him up with a gang of people, his two goonies that he's always with, and Bakugo never really does chill out. Bakugo often ends up leaving ends up leaving a bunch of scars on Deku, and this honestly just causes Deku to kind of go numb. Now, Deku being himself stays strong. For the past 10 years, he hasn't let it break him. Like, yes, Bakugo does bully him and his friends do as well, but the days that he doesn't get bullied, he has pretty good days at school. Seeing as Bakugo takes his bullying to the extreme with Deku, other people around Deku don't really mess with him that much, but there's a select few who, whenever they're having bad days, will mess with Deku and pick at him for being quirkless. When Deku gets home, some days he might not even be acknowledged by his parents, and those are his favorite types of days. The days where Deku just walks in, grabs whatever he can from the fridge when no one's looking, and goes into his room to just kind of be in there. Deku's not allowed to lock his door because they took the lock away, because anytime that they wanted to vent out their anger, they wanted to go right in there. But Deku kind of lived this sort of life, and Deku still hoped that someday he could potentially become a hero. So in secret, Deku would always do some training, watching these internet videos to maybe figure out how to learn a little bit of self-defense in case he ever does actually become a pro hero, which from the way that things are looking now seems very unlikely. That being said though, with Deku being the way that he is, all it would take is one bad day to ruin everything, to change Deku, to morph him into the Joker, a sinister person. That being said, that day is today. Deku is now going to be 10 years old, of course, and on this particular day, Deku would have already been beaten by Bakugo and his goons, so he would have gone to the house limping. Deku would walk inside of the door, and when he does, he would see his father inside of the house, as he could hear yelling, and he would just basically walk into a situation which goes as follows. On this particular day, it was actually Inko's birthday, and on this day, Hisashi would have actually taken his day off of work to go visit Inko. One thing I forgot to mention was that Inko is not faithful, not at all. Any chance that she gets that Hisashi's on his little business trip, she often invites men over to, you know, do stuff with. And on this particular day, on Inko's birthday, she invited a total of 1 guy. Not 2, not 3, you know, I was going to say more than that, but it wouldn't really make sense for what I'm going for. That being said, though, Inko would basically be in the bedroom with another man, and Hisashi would walk in angered at this. He would say, I take the day off of work and you do this. He would get angry, and Inko and the man would basically be putting their clothes on. Hisashi would go outside as he would see Deku in the living room, and he would just kind of give him a little bit of a weird twisted smile as he goes over and grabs a gun. This is when Hisashi would walk back into the bedroom as the guy inside of the bed would say, yo man, chill out bro. I'll never do this again. I'll never come back here. I'll give you anything you want, man, please let me live. But before he even gets to finish that sentence, Hisashi would put a bullet straight in the man's head, as he would then turn his attention towards Inko, and she would say, oh my god! She would just scream, and Deku would say, what happened? He would go to the doors. He would see Hisashi just push Inko and start punching her in the face repeatedly. Inko would go over and grab a knife, and she would stab it into Hisashi's leg. Hisashi would simply just let out a maniacal laugh, which Deku is never going to be able to take out of his mind. As he would grab the knife that was buried right into his left thigh, he would stick it out as he would begin to slash it at Inko over and over and over until her corpse or her lifeless body just became nothing. She sat there and the yell stopped. Hisashi stopped getting the satisfaction. And after this, Hisashi would look right at Deku as he would just say, he's sorry. He would aim the gun at his head and blast it, as Deku would just sit there in a pool of blood. His mother's, her lover, and Hisashi himself. Deku would cry as the authorities would arrive about 10 minutes later, and they would see a boy sitting in a pile of blood and bodies, as he would just be crying saying, what happened? Deku, when people ask him what happened, Deku would just be like, I don't, as he would just let out a maniacal laughter. This is when everybody would just be like, what happened? As the authorities would pretty much just end up saying that this kid has no one and nobody. They would end up looking through the records to see if Deku has any family who they can pretty much just throw him off to. And Deku, he has nobody. Deku would end up basically be thrown into an orphanage at the age of 10. And in that orphanage, he would be known as a weirdo, a quirkless kid. Not only is he older, but he's quirkless. Nobody wants him. So a lot of the kids who come and go and get, you know, picked up as, you know, foster parents basically bully him all the time, because those kids are the same ones that have pretty cool quirks. People who have a chance of becoming pro heroes, and they're the ones who bully Deku the most. This causes Deku to have a little bit of a warped view of hero society and quirks in and of itself. He had his first run-in with bullies with Bakugo, so what these kids did to him wasn't really that big of a deal compared to Bakugo. But imagine just being told that you're worthless, you're quirkless, you're nothing, getting beaten by kids twice your size with quirks, powers that you don't have at all. That messes with people's mental state. And this would continue for about 7 months. And at this point, Deku would now be about 11 years old. During this time, Deku would have had his birthday about 1 week ago, and he would have just wished for one friend. This is when a certain person would arrive, as Deku would end up just kind of being like, sitting in the corner reading one of his books. The girl would actually have some blonde hair, as, let's say, we're not really going to give her a name. We're just going to go with Tatsumi. Yeah, we're going to go with Tatsumi, all right? Her name was, no. Her name is Harley. Harley Quinn. Yeah, that's right. Yep, y'all know where I'm about to go with this. Her name would be Harley. Now, Deku would be in the orphanage. She would approach Deku and basically say, hey, what's up? She would walk over to Deku, and Deku would simply ignore her for like 10 minutes before he finally says, what do you want? Harley would look towards Deku's direction, and she would say, I just wanted to talk. Deku would look at her and say, why do you want to talk to me? Why don't you go talk to the other guys? They seem like they want to talk to you. As other guys in the orphanage would be looking at Harley, kind of just making gestures, kind of showing the fact that they're attracted to her. And Harley would just kind of ignore them. She would say, I mean, I like your hair. You seem to be the most interesting one here. Deku would say, interesting, huh? I haven't heard that used in my name ever. And she would say, what is your name? Deku would say, "My name's Izuku Midoriya." And she would look at Deku as she would say, "Oh, well, my name's Harley Quinn." This is when Deku and her would pretty much just begin to have a full-on conversation, as she would pretty much just slowly begin to get to know Deku a little bit. After every day, Deku would open up just a little bit more, and after about 5 months, Harley and Deku would have basically built a pretty dope relationship. At this point, Harley was kind of like Deku's protector. She would always stand up for Deku whenever he wouldn't, and during this time Deku would still be taking those martial arts classes during the nighttime. Deku would pretty much sneak off to go learn a little bit of self-defense because he's grown tired of all these kids bullying him. One of these days Deku is gonna snap, and that day is coming close, because about 1 month ago from this time period, Deku had already laid out a plan, a day which Deku was going to escape from this hellhole, a day where Deku was going to make it all go away. Now, Deku would basically have a plan set up where he gets a couple of gallons of gasoline and a lighter fluid, and Deku essentially has it so that about the day that they're having their little orphanage festival, the day where they're all gonna have this little event where all of them are just gonna get to have some fun, and it's kind of gonna be like a field day. If you guys remember that when we were all in elementary school, that's pretty much what it's kind of gonna be like. Now everybody would be playing, Deku would be with Harley, and at this point Deku and Harley were kind of inseparable. Deku loves Harley, and she's like the only beat of light that Deku has in his life at all. But when it comes to that, Deku actually ends up, Deku actually ends up not saying a thing to her. He would just pretend that everything's fine, that he doesn't know what's going on, and the day would finally arrive of the festival. Now everybody would be having a good time. He and Harley would just be playing on the swing sets after eating these big huge pieces of cake. Nobody would have really messed with Deku on this day, seeing as everybody's just trying to have their fun, you know what I mean? Nobody really is caring about Deku on this particular day, but Deku would just be smiling because on the last event of the day, they're all actually going to go inside and watch a movie. No exceptions. All the people who are there, meaning the caretakers and the kids and all of the people who once bullied him before, would go in there. Now, Deku would pretty much just proceed to get a creepy smile on his face, seeing as he already planted the gasoline in a bunch of places which are highly flammable and will explode if the gasoline is hit with any fire. And Deku, he has a match. So what Deku's pretty much waiting for is for all of them to go inside and for he and Harley to be the last two out there. Deku would grab Harley as he would say, "Oh wait, I forgot something." And he would pretty much end up telling her that he forgot something as he would begin to walk away, lighting the match with his pants and pretty much throwing it right onto the side where the fumes are, as it would immediately engulf and everybody inside of the orphanage would explode. The explosion would catch Deku and Harley as they would get blown back. And this is when Deku would look at Harley's direction as she would say, "What happened? They had nothing and nobody. They didn't deserve this." She would be like angry, just saying, "Deku, we need to go call for help." As Deku would just be laughing maniacally. And Harley would immediately look down at the ground and she would say, Did you do this?" Deku would look at her as he would say, as he would just look at her, and Harley would just look at Deku's direction as I just tried the Joker laugh. It sounded a little weird, but you know, I did my best, you know what I mean? I might do it a couple more times just because it was kind of fun to do, but you never know. Anyways though, Harley would just look at Deku and she would say, You're a monster. I thought you were someone else." As Deku would look at her and say, "You were gonna be leaving soon anyways. I might as well have done this now." As he would pretty much just look at her and say, "Come with me. We'll be together forever." As he would laugh and say, "Ah!" And Harley would just say, You're a monster." She would rush over her. She would grab a bat, and Deku would take out a pocket knife from his pocket, as Harley would swing the bat, and Deku, using the training that he's been learning for the past couple of years, would duck. This is when Deku would pretty much come back up as he would just have a little bit of a tear coming down his face, and Deku would slash at Harley's throat. This is when she would fall down onto the ground lifeless, and Deku would fall onto his knees as he would cry for the last time. Deku would grab her body as he would bury it in another place. He would pretty much grab her body and drag it with him on his back. She would bury her in an alleyway where Deku would kind of just realize that now he's gonna have to be a different person. This is when Deku would turn to a life of crime. And for the first month or so, Deku would pretty much just try petty robbery. You know what I mean? That's pretty much all that Deku would be doing. However, one day, Deku would make one wrong move. During this time, Deku was pretty much hiding out in a warehouse where Deku's been keeping all of his money. Now, Deku wasn't planning to exactly be evil for his entire life. You know what I mean? He just wanted to get rid of all the bad. So that's what he did to the orphanage. Deku simply wanted to get away from it all, make as much money so he can get out of Japan and live a life free, carefree with nobody to bother him. Well, that all changed when one day Deku was pretty much in over his head and he joined a gang, which pretty much caused him to put on this red hood. And I'm pretty sure many of you guys already know how the story goes. Deku ends up going into this sort of warehouse where he pretty much ends up having to be like the scout and lookout for the group of thugs or whatever, as they all end up going in there and Deku pretty much is the one who has to play the Red Hood. Now, this is when a pro hero would arrive, causing for both of the other villains that Deku was with to pretty much get captured, and Deku would pretty much try to fight Aizawa, but yep, it's Aizawa. And as Aizawa pretty much lands the final blow, Deku is off balance, which causes him to go off of the rail, landing in a pit of these chemicals. Now, these chemicals would entirely bleach Deku's skin, causing him to now look like what you guys see up on screen right now. Right now, I should be putting up a picture of what Deku's going to be looking like in the what if, and I'm pretty sure you guys might be able to just see it based off of the thumbnail in and of itself, but now I'm going to put a little bit of a cutout of it. That being said, though, Deku would pretty much get washed out into like this where the nuclear waste thing pretty much ends up dropping all of its waste, and Deku would see himself from the reflection of the water. He would look at himself and he would just say, I'm he would just laugh and, you know, he'd be going crazy, as Deku would pretty much just realize that he's nobody now. Who is he? He would have a little bit of a personality disorder for the next couple of months, as Deku would decide that, I mean, one bad day is all it takes to make anybody go bad. And that is what Deku wants to show the world. That's what Deku wants to do to this world. He wants to destroy, bring it down to its knees. Hero society will crumble under a quirkless man's feet. And then, and only then, will Deku be able to finally rest in peace when everybody's dead. Deku would proceed to pretty much pick himself up off of the ground, as he would pretty much walk into a little tailor store. This is where Deku would pretty much just drop a wad of cash onto the register and pretty much say that he needs something made for him. Stat. The clerk would pretty much just be like, what is it, sir? As he would look at Deku's white skin. Now, he wouldn't exactly be freaking out too bad, because remember, we are in a superhuman society where people have deformities all the time. But Deku wouldn't be smiling, he wouldn't do anything. He would just say, I need a suit made. As the man would go over there, he would get his measurements and Deku would get the suit. Now, after it was made for him, Deku would quite literally shoot the man in the head, taking all of the money in the register and walking out of there, where Deku would now establish himself as the Joker, the clown prince of crime. However, that reputation's not going to get out there by itself. So Deku would definitely have to basically, through the next couple of months, build his own name. For the next following months, Deku would basically proceed to mess around with pro heroes with elaborate plans. He would create a bunch of fake bombs and plant them all over the city, pretty much telling a bunch of heroes that if they don't arrive, you know, their entire city is gonna blow up. And, well, this plan is one of the ones that he made about 1 month into starting everything. You see, he started off with slow crimes, things that he wasn't really going to be getting caught in, such as bank robberies, because Deku knew a couple of these places like the back of his hand. Not only that, but he had a couple of men working under him who he was supposedly going to pay, but at the end, he was going to just backstab them all and take all the money for himself. That being said, though, Deku pretty much went on that just to collect some money for the plan that he has next, as he would pretty much end up making a little bit of a secret base for himself. The Joker, he would pretty much just end up making a little bit of a place for himself. An abandoned amusement park is where Deku likes to go. However, it's not wide in the open. It's a little secretive, because in that abandoned amusement park, there's a little bit of a storage unit that nobody really knows about. It's under the park in and of itself, and that's where Deku's base of operations is pretty much at. Deku comes up with all of his wacky plans. On one occasion, Deku made a gigantic gumball machine which pretty much ends up shooting giant gumballs that ends up catching a bunch of pro heroes off guard, and he ends up actually killing a bunch of civilians on that day. Not only that, but Deku now has all of the Joker tools and assets, as well as a bunch of men, after just a couple of months of being, well, the Joker. Deku at this current point is now getting involved with like big organization crime people such as the Yakuza and things of that nature. And he would have actually been involved in a couple of plans for, you know, giving them some supplies, because the Yakuza was kind of interested in Deku's laughing gas, or not Deku, because that's not who he is anymore, the Joker's laughing gas. I'm now going to be referring to Deku as the Joker, so if it's a little bit confusing, I do apologize. That being said though, Deku would pretty much end up giving them laughing gas for just the right price. And Deku would never find out a thing about Eri, because if he did, Deku is the Joker, but I mean, dude, he was treated horribly as a kid. So it's like, if he was to see what they do to Eri, he probably would murder Overhaul. Not take Eri in, but he would murder Overhaul nonetheless. But, you know, it's too early to get rid of him, so let's keep going. That being said though, guys, Deku would basically proceed to essentially continue rising until one day he would make an elaborate scheme which pretty much causes Deku to get caught up by a pro hero by the name of Endeavor. Now, Endeavor would actually end up capturing Deku and bringing him into jail, where Deku would now be inside of Tartarus. And inside of there, Deku would end up making an alliance with a bunch of other like villains, such as, I don't know, like random villains, right? They're pretty strong, all right? That's all you really need to know. So Deku would end up getting a bunch of people to start following him, and when it comes to what people think his quirk is, they think it's some sort of manipulation quirk, but Deku just knows how to manipulate humans. It's like child's play to him. It's like playing with Play-Doh at this point, or putty. He can bend people to do whatever he wants without a quirk needed or anything. He simply acts as if he understands what they feel and pretty much warps their perspective of reality. That being said though, Deku pretty much proceeds to create a gigantic army and even befriends one of the guards that's working there. It would be a female worker who ends up bringing him a camera. Now Deku would live cast and pretty much end up hacking into the public Japan like network system, where he would announce a big giant video. He would say that prior to his arrest, he ended up scattering a bunch of bombs across Japan that were all set to blow up within the next 3 hours. And if they don't get him out of Tartarus, every single one of those bombs will explode, killing millions of innocent people. Deku would pretty much just say this as he just has a maniacal laugh, doing the iconic Joker laugh at the end, saying, "And you have 30 minutes to release me from Tartarus before I kill everyone." Just going a crazy, insane laugh as pro heroes are just not knowing what to do. And so they end up pretty much releasing Deku. This is when Deku would end up telling them all that they need to let him go and that he's going to be leaving some clues for them to figure out where the bombs are going to be. Now, Deku never said that he was going to turn them off or, you know, even tell them where they were. So Deku gives them a couple of clues and ends up making his escape with a Joker game, pretty much freeing him from, let's say the hero was Crust. Hero was Crust, who was, you know, taking care of him. Deku ended up using a little bit of Joker toxin, which Deku always has like a little bit of a, he stuck a little thing of Joker gas into his literal arm. He literally modified his arm so that he can have like Joker gas shoot out of it on command. Think of it like Spider-Man spiderweb, but nothing too crazy. It just sprays out like 2 to 3 feet away, you know what I mean? Nothing insane, but yeah, he would shoot Crust with it, causing him to get a giant smile on his face, and the Joker gang would pretty much end up breaking him out, causing Deku to smile, being pretty happy about all this, and end up going back to his base where all the heroes would just be flustered, thinking about where these bombs were. Now, a bunch of pro heroes would put their heads together and end up finding the location of the bombs. However, when they do and they look for these bombs, they would end up noticing that none of them would actually blow. They were all a prank. It was all one giant gag that Joker created to pretty much throw everyone off of his true intentions. This causes everybody to just be like, the heroes aren't good enough. They're not even able to stop some bombs left by some random freak who with a clown mask. As the heroes would basically start losing a lot of public support, seeing as they can't even stop one crazy psychotic clown. People are starting to basically follow Joker, as he's now starting to make a name for himself as the clown prince of crime. And one person who has a particular interest with Deku is all for one. Now, this is where the story is going to start getting a little crazier, and the actual world and like plot of the My Hero Academia verse is going to slowly start getting involved. People from, UA are finally going to start getting into the story. Now, everybody at UA currently, oh, by the way, I said it was a couple of months, but let's just say that we're going to be having a little bit of a time skip where nobody's really able to kind of track down Deku. But during these next couple of years, Deku ends up taking his time to train physically, I guess you could say, doing a couple of weird schemes here and there whenever he feels like it, and we're just gonna go with that because I honestly have nothing else in my mind. This video is unscripted and kind of based on an old series that I made, where I took all of the good elements of it and I continue to basically just compile it all and pretty much just end up revamping it. So in case you're an old viewer and you're like, hold on now, this story sounds familiar, well, that's why. It's kind of basically the same thing, just I rehashed it and made it a lot better, but it's unscripted at the same time, so sometimes I just won't know what I'm saying. But yeah, that being said though, Deku would end up pretty much just training up till they're all basically going to be UA students. Now, this is around the time that the USJ attack would happen, and I'm guessing many of you guys know what's about to happen. Joker would end up actually getting affiliated with the League of Villains, so long as they pay him handsomely. Deku's not in it for the money, but to destroy a bunch of heroes and keep weakening the public's perception of villains, of the hero society in and of itself. Oh, Deku lives for that. Not only that, but when he hears that they have a plan to kill All Might, the symbol of peace, Deku was all ears. When they tell him the plan about the Nomu, Deku ends up getting pretty excited. Deku has a feeling that it might not work, but he goes along with it in case, because Deku always has a method of escape. And this is when Deku would start to plan it. He would have a couple of Joker gang pretty much goons be there with him who, in case anything goes wrong, would inject 1 or 3 students with Joker toxin, which is actually a new threat of it, because the heroes already made an antidote for it, but now Deku created a new toxic, a better version of the Joker gas, which is injectable. And if they don't get the antidote, they're gonna die. So if anything goes wrong, Deku is going to be having a method of escape, because come on now, we can't have the story ending this soon. That being said though, Deku would pretty much end up going along with all of these plans. He would end up meeting Shigaraki, and when Deku meets Shigaraki, he would walk in there as he would say, "Greetings, Joker." As you know, Shigaraki would be like, "Get that hand out of my face." He would say, "You're one of my goons, is that understood? I don't care how much the boss thinks that you're important. You're nothing to me." Deku would just be like, "Party pooper." As he would just be like, "Oh, well," as he would pretty much just end up telling all of his goons that he has it, that's the new boss man, as all of his goons would just start chuckling, and Shigaraki would end up going up to one of them as he tries to kill one, but Deku grabs his hand and ends up telling him that the only person who's going to be killing anyone here is him if he doesn't get his hand off of his men. As Shigaraki would move his hand back and just be like, "I'll kill you after this mission's over. You're lucky we need your toxin. If not, I would kill you right here and now." As Deku would just laugh and go, "Ah ha ha." Okay, I'm not even gonna attempt it without actually getting it started. He would do the crazy Joker laugh, and then Shigaraki would be like, "You're creepy." As they would basically end up getting teleported into the USJ. Now, everybody from normal events would pretty much be making it there, and Bakugo, he never really kept up with Deku, so he doesn't know that he died. He does know about what happened to him, but that's not his fault, so Bakugo doesn't care. He's had 0 character development, and he's still a prick. So Yeah, when Deku runs into Bakugo, it's definitely going to be beautiful. That being said though, guys, this is when Deku would pretty much proceed to arrive at the USJ. Kurogiri would appear in front of all the heroes as he would say, "I'm sorry to be busting in and crashing this party, but we decided to invite ourselves in." As he would end up basically teleporting everybody in there, and the same situation with Ida, 13, all that stuff would end up happening. All of the people would end up getting teleported away, and seeing as Deku's not going to be on the boat, the goon who actually ended up taking down 2 students would actually be one of the people who had a water quirk. He would end up injecting it into Tsuyu and Mineta, causing them both to be taken out of commission. Not only that, but when it comes to the next person who gets taken out, it would be someone like, let's say, actually, no, I think that's more than enough students to pretty much cause a little bit of a ruckus. But yeah, that's what we're pretty much going to be saying. No, I want to get one more student in there too. We're going to say that the other student who gets caught off guard is going to be Uraraka. Uraraka? Yeah, wait, does Uraraka get caught up? Yeah, we're just going to say she does too. She gets caught by a villain, and the villain ends up injecting her as well. That being said, Aizawa would jump down and begin to fight a bunch of the goons. And Deku would look at Aizawa. As he doesn't say a word, he shows no emotions. He would just clap and laugh maniacally as he would say, "Oh yeah, left, right, come on, let him at it, let him at it." As a bunch of his goons are just attacking Aizawa, Deku's just messing around, and Shigaraki's getting tired of this. He would say, "Be quiet with all your nonsense, you're annoying me." Like Joker would just look at him as he would say, "You're annoying as well," as he would just look towards the battle as Aizawa would finally take out all of those weaker villains. However, a couple of them would land a couple of good blows, so Aizawa would be a little weakened. But this is when Shigaraki would say, "Let me show you how powerful the League of Villains is. Nomu, kill him." The Nomu would rush at Aizawa as it would throw a giant punch at his ribs, grab onto his arm, so when he punches Aizawa's ribs, he pretty much causes them to puncture into his stomach, causing Aizawa to pretty much get like messed up badly, and the Nomu would just start crashing Aizawa's head right into the ground over and over and over, causing Aizawa to get weakened heavily. Aizawa would start losing a whole lot of blood, and Ida of course still ended up running to go get All Might. So All Might is currently on his way, and with nobody there to really save Aizawa or do anything about it, Aizawa, he dies. He's gotten rid of right at the beginning by just the Nomu. The Nomu's physical strength, and because nobody was there to really help him out, Aizawa dies. However, one person does end up arriving to slowly, momentarily handle the Nomu. Todoroki freezes the Nomu, but it's too late. Aizawa was already dead. And when Todoroki freezes him, Shigaraki would rush at Todoroki as he would shoot an iceberg at Shigaraki, which Shigaraki just ends up telling the Nomu to destroy. After this, the Nomu would just basically blitz at Todoroki, punching him, causing Todoroki to get flung into like a different area, where Todoroki would just get knocked out unconscious, and well, Todoroki would just be out cold, like he's done for. That being said though, this is around the time that All Might would arrive, as we would then have pretty much All Might versus the Nomu happen. Now All Might would rush at the Nomu as he would pretty much end up like destroying it with the assistance of Bakugo, because he does still get caught off guard and pretty much get put into that suplex hold. But when it comes to that, he ends up seeing the Joker, who All Might has had a couple of run-ins with him as well, but All Might always seemed to be one step ahead of him. Not once was All Might able to stop the Joker. The closest person to ever be anywhere near that was Endeavor, who put him away for about like a couple weeks, but other than that, that was it. He got out a couple of days later, so it wasn't really amounting to anything. That being said though, All Might would look at Joker and he would say, "You dastardly villain, I'll get you today." As he would fight the Nomu, and a rage boost would kind of help All Might defeat the Nomu a little easier than in canon, causing All Might to have just a little bit of one for all left, meaning that he's not going to be bluffing this time. If he wanted to, he could definitely take out at least both of them and you know, take them into custody. But when All Might would blitz at Deku or Joker and punch him, he would quite literally punch his ribs, as he would cause Deku to get flying away. Deku would then proceed to pretty much get up as All Might was about to throw in another blow, but Deku would say, Do you want people to die? All Might would stop his blow halfway there, and the wind pressure would cause Deku's hair to fling back. This is when Deku would just look at All Might as he would put his hand on his face and say, All Might, All Might, All Might. Did you think that I didn't have a backup plan? Look over there, as he would basically point over to where Suyu, Mineta, and who else did I say? Uraraka are at. As he would look at him, and it's at this point that he would pretty much just look at All Might as he would say, if you don't let me go, those two aren't gonna get the antidote, and without the antidote, they'll die. There's no reason that you're going to be able to save them. All Might would say that that's not going to be a problem. They already have an antidote for his poison. And he would just laugh out maniacally as he would say, it hurts to laugh. He would just pretty much just look at All Might in the eyes. He would start squishing his cheeks and All Might would just get angrier and angrier. The only thing that All Might wants to do is kill him. He never wanted to kill All For One as bad as he wants to kill Joker. So he would look right at him, right in his eyes, and Deku would test him to kill him, because if he does that, 3 hero students will lose their life on that day. All Might would kind of just have a little bit of an internal battle with himself, and this is when Deku would basically catch someone from the corner of his eye, a boy with blonde hair. He would be coming at him as he would say, All Might, why don't you just finish the job? He would throw an explosion at Deku as Deku would grab his arm and like pretty much just hold him there. As Bakugo would say, oh damn it! He would throw an explosion at Deku once again as Deku would sidestep it and just say, he would begin to laugh and say, funny to see you here, as he would look at Bakugo and he would just grab him as he would pretty much hold a knife to Bakugo's throat. He would say, one wrong move and you die. As Bakugo would look right at Deku and just be paralyzed in fear. Deku has a presence to him that is terrifying. See, do you guys remember Stain's blood curdle move where he pretty much causes everybody to be paralyzed? Deku is releasing so much incredible bloodlust and horror off of himself that Bakugo cannot move. He physically cannot move. He's terrified of Deku at this moment. And Joker would just begin to laugh as he says, don't worry. He would rub the knife across Bakugo's face as he would say, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna let you smile. You know, we're all having fun here, right, All Might? We're all friends. This is when All Might would clench his fist as he would say, what are your demands? He would be holding everything back to not rush over there and kill Joker right in an instant. As Deku would say, whoa, calm down there, Buster. As he would just look at All Might and say, you let me leave and I'll give you the antidote. All Might would see, I can't do that. As Deku would basically point over to them as the poison would be acting fast. If they don't have the antidote injected into them in the next 10 minutes, all 3 of them are gonna die. They all started getting a green tint of color to their skins, which causes All Might to freak out and falter as he would say, alright, you can leave, but where's the antidote? Deku would point over to a certain area as he would say, you better get looking. As All Might would just grit his teeth and say, let that boy go. Deku would say, oh no. I think I'm gonna keep this one. All Might would grit his teeth as he would say, that's enough! As he would rush over to Deku, but Deku would kind of start slowly cutting into Bakugo's neck as he would say, one wrong move and I'll kill the brat. Let me leave with him. As he would slowly start backing up, and Shigaraki would just basically just be standing there. She's like, who do you think you are calling all these shots? Deku would look at Shigaraki as he would say, right now, I'm the only reason we're gonna get out of here alive, so be quiet. He would look at Shigaraki as Shigaraki would walk over to Deku, and Shigaraki would call over Kurogiri. All 3 of them would step into the portal as Deku would pretty much end up looking towards All Might and just smiling as he laughs as he enters the portal. And All Might would immediately begin to look for the antidote, which he would find and inject all 3 of the students, causing for all 3 of them to end up living. This is when Deku would arrive into a room with Bakugo, the League of Villains hideout, the little bar, as he would look at Shigaraki, who would just tell him that who would just look at him and say, "You're not so bad." And Deku honestly wanted to kill Shigaraki right there. He wanted to destroy him because Shigaraki was pissing him off that whole time. But he stayed silent because he was already happy at the fact that he captured the one person who Deku couldn't wait to make suffer. His parents already did that job for himself, so if he ever gets a chance to hurt this kid, he's gonna take it. Deku would take Bakugo into a warehouse where he would pretty much give him the Jason Todd treatment, beating him with the crowbars. He would ask, "What hurts more, A or B?" as he would smack Bakugo across the back with a crowbar, beating Bakugo, just completely demoralizing him, injecting him with so many toxins that Bakugo just doesn't know how to distinguish his left from his right or any of his senses. Deku tortures Bakugo completely, causing Bakugo's mental state to break. At one point, Bakugo gets boring and his yells just stop. Bakugo would cry and plead for his life as Deku would look at him and tell him that, well, maybe if he would have, stopped what he pled for his life, he would have done something. As Deku would stop doing the Joker voice and he would say, "Right, Bakugo?" Bakugo would hear that voice as he would say, "Deku?" And for a second, his senses would slowly come back to him. Deku would lean over to Bakugo as he would say, "Remember when we were kids, Bakugo, and we were best friends? You got your quirk and one day to another you became a total jerk to me." He would just start laughing as Bakugo would say, "Dude, that was a long time ago. I'm not the same. I'm sorry, Deku." He would say, That name. I always did hate that name." As he would beat Bakugo with the crowbar, more and more and more, Bakugo would plead for his life, begging for Deku to stop, but Deku would not. He would continue the beating, telling Bakugo that if he would have stopped just once in his life, let Deku go off without a beating, maybe he would have stopped as well. But Deku pretty much beats him until Bakugo is at a near-death state, and All Might would finally be able to track down where Bakugo was at, but he's too late. The warehouse would explode, and Bakugo would die in an explosion. Because art is an explosion. No, I'm totally kidding. But isn't it kind of weird how Bakugo dies in an explosion when his quirk is explosions? A little bit ironic if you ask me, but that's what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying? That being said though, guys, this is when Deku, I'm actually having a blast with this story. This story is actually pretty lit. But we're like reaching towards the conclusion right now. So we're about to get to all the craziness and all the twists and turns right now where the story is going to pretty much reach its climax. Now, Deku at this point could honestly bring Japan to its knees. But how's Deku going to keep it like that? I mean, sooner or later, some hero is going to pop up with a quirk that may be able to stop him. And so, Deku goes back to the League of Villains, where he's actually going to be given a quirk by All For One. Now, this quirk is basically going to be that of whenever Deku laughs, people pretty much end up laughing with him. Deku's able to pretty much make people laugh maniacally with Deku. So if Deku laughs, other people basically fall into uncontrollable laughter as well. Not only that, but All For One also gives him a perception quirk, which allows Deku to, keep up with certain hits and blows, causing Deku's tactical and, just hand-to-hand combat skills to go up. Joker is incredibly strong for somebody who didn't have the same training as Batman. He's able to go blow for blow with the Cape Crusader himself. So this version of Deku is no slouch. He definitely was able to take down Bakugo easily because of the fact that he has very, very good hand-to-hand combat prowess. He's been training for years, mind you. And they're in a quirk society where everybody and their mother has an incredible power. So Deku's always been at a disadvantage and he's used to this. But now Deku's disadvantage is slowly going away. Now, this is when Deku would go out, as he would pretty much just end up looking at Shigaraki, as Shigaraki just bumps his shoulder, and Deku would just start laughing, as Shigaraki would also begin to laugh maniacally, and Deku would just be like, okay, that was awful. That Joker laugh was disgusting. Hold on, let me try one more time. Okay, I can't do it right now for some reason. I don't have the little laugh thingy. Guys, please feel free to roast my Joker laugh down below in the comments. I'm gonna have an absolute blast reading those comments of the roast, so it's gonna be pretty funny if you guys do that. So if any of you guys have any cool little quirky comments to make, definitely leave them down below. The funniest one will get pinned down below in the comment section. That being said though, let's continue the story. Deku would look at Shigaraki as he's nowhere near All For One at this point, but he would pretty much just end up looking at Shigaraki as he would proceed to essentially shoot a bullet straight through his head. He would basically shoot a gun right at Shigaraki, which would have a little thing come out of it that says bang. And when Deku does that, Shigaraki would be terrified because he thought he just died. Like, he saw his life flash before his eyes. But Deku pretty much ended up making it so that the gun didn't shoot. Shigaraki thought that everything was okay, so he stopped laughing and got angry at Deku, saying that that wasn't funny. But Deku would say, but this is, as he would shoot it and the thing would go straight into Shigaraki's heart, killing him. This is when Deku would just start laughing, as it's at this point that Joker would pretty much just end up going away, as All For One would realize what Deku did. But Deku at this point is scheming. He's making some plans in order to steal quirks from people. And Deku would pretty much end up developing his own little formula, which is able to actually steal the quirks from others. Deku quite literally made it possible so that Deku, with a certain tool that he created, a little syringe, is able to pretty much steal people's quirks. And so Deku pretty much ends up meeting All For One once again, after All For One just tells Deku that, you know, his other little apprentice who he had before wasn't exactly too pleasing. So if he's willing to basically start listening to him, then he can let bygones be bygones. Maybe he'll even forgive him. Deku would listen to this and just be like, maybe, but I don't know. Is it worth it? But Deku is basically going to essentially look up at at All For One, as he would say, maybe I could join you. As both of them would pretty much just end up coming to an agreement that he's pretty much going to be given more quirks in the exchange of his loyalty. So Deku would pretty much just pretend that he's going along with it, manipulating All For One slowly, until when All For One is pretty much transferring a quirk, Deku would stab a syringe right into All For One as he would begin to drain it out, and All For One would just look at Deku as in an instant all of All For One's body would go numb. He injected him with pretty much a little bit of a toxin, which at first pretty much causes All For One's entire body to completely, not like a little bit, but completely go numb. Not a thing of All For One's body is going to be able to move. So Deku pretty much paralyzes All For One, and after this he would inject another syringe, which causes All For One's quirk to get ripped right out of him. It would pretty much be modeled right after All For One's quirk himself. If there's a quirk that allows him to steal powers, then there's definitely going to be a tool which allows him to do that. And so after this, Deku would inject himself with the power of All For One himself. And from here, Deku would cause carnage. Deku would begin to destroy cities with this quirk. He would begin to use it in an insane amount. Deku's body is definitely going to be way stronger than All For One's crippled, old, aging self. So Deku just starts causing so much mayhem within the city. He would start with Hosu, as he would destroy it, ripping it apart with an earthquake quirk, which pretty much destroys the city in and of itself. And not only that, but All For One had decay as well. Or he basically ended up stealing decay from Shigaraki's body, which was already dying as it is. So Deku uses this and all of his powers that he has to his ability to pretty much begin to destroy all of the heroes. Heroes such as Endeavor and All Might would try as they might, their hardest. They would give everything they have to try to defeat Deku, but Deku is incredible. If Joker had the abilities of All For One, and he had all these crazy quirks, there's not going to be a person alive who's going to be able to stop him. I mean, once Joker got like the power of Mr. I forgot his name, but it was the Emperor Joker comic. If any of you guys have seen that one before, where he pretty much ended up having superpowers, and the Joker was a menace, bro. He destroyed all of China to make a joke. And guess what Deku does? Yep, he's gonna be destroying all of China just to prove a point. Yeah, my boy Deku is a straight savage like that. That being said though, yeah, Deku pretty much ends up destroying the entire world of the My Hero Academia universe. And that is where What If Deku Was the Joker is going to be ending. I hope you guys enjoyed the series, and the ending of it was a little bit on the bland, more boring side of things. And trust me, it's not because I got lazy, it's not because of any of those little reasons, it's merely just because when it gets to this point, it's really not going to be any fun for me. I mean, if I just talk about how Deku obliterates everybody, because, I mean, Joker in and of itself without the quirk would have probably destroyed it if I just kept going into the story like 20 more minutes and like made a really cool plan about it. But this one just seemed cooler. I mean, it's stealing all for one. Bro, come on. That's Joker 101 right there. So that's pretty much the approach that I ended up going with. And I hope that you guys ended up actually liking that, because I think it was actually a pretty good idea. I like the little concept that I brought. And if you guys enjoyed the little Halloween special, then please consider subscribing, sharing the video around, as well as liking the video, because you guys have no idea how much liking a video can do. Liking a video pretty much changes it from going to like a 2,000 view video to like a 10,000 view video, because it helps out with the algorithm and it helps me out a ton. That being said though, guys, I hope you guys have an amazing Halloween, and I hope you guys stay cool. Remember guys, I love each and every single one of you guys, and it has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.